Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 89th episode of Book of Hours, playing our first YouTube run as the artist. I'm creeping closer to an ending in my main Twitch playthrough, but we're not quite there yet, so I can still say that I don't know how the game ends, although I have some fairly clear ideas. But I'm trying to keep them somewhat independent, so I think a few of you already kind of know where this series is headed. Although I figure even among the people who already know what's going on, or already know the game, they might be interested in wondering maybe what the ultimate destination is going to be. Now, I did do a couple of different things. So it was the Aganalia of Janus on the 9th, so I did a special broadcast for that. But between that and my normal playthrough, I have a little bit more distance than I normally do, so it's always a bit of an adventure to figure out what's going on. I seem to remember having a bit of disappointment that I couldn't pick up the White Book of Brittany. That's because it has a tally price of 4, whereas we only have a Bronze Spentria, or 2 tally price. We are also unlocking the Squawkful Logia, and I don't think we have... yeah, I don't think we know what the weather is today yet. But I think the most obvious thing for me to be doing today would be to upgrade the pyroglyphics. I'm actually wondering why there is a gap in my skills. Usually that would be an indicator that I am reading something. Right, we are reading the secret colors. Now, I think it is a little unusual. So here's something that I don't understand about what I've done here. I'm missing 1. And is it because I thought it was a foggy day? It's quite reckless of me if I did, because there is no fog. Anyways, the one thing I do want to make sure I have is some kind of a moon memory, which is not currently in my possession. So we're going to come out the gate with a... we'll get a, let's say, a confounding parable on that one, because I figure intuition is something we might pick up from a follower. So we'll read 2 letters from fugitive, the other line. Oh, you know what? It hasn't been a while since... I'm going to read the other line. And for that, I want to try and use something that I have the most in terms of... It would help if I actually read it at an appropriate desk. So, Hard Unceasing, I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. And one other thing that would be nice is if I could get something with a forge and lantern. Now, I don't think there is a lantern moon or or forge moon memory. So I'm gonna just stick with what I've got here. So the reason why I'm bringing up this memory is because reading this book, we've got 55 seconds, and it could ask me for an element of the soul, it could ask me for an object, it may ask me for weather, but without a memory, I'm denying myself one of the possibilities that could be drawn here. So again, I think it's quite likely that we're going to be able to read this. But like I also said, I'm a little perplexed in terms of why I did this without security. So anyways, we put that in. This is one thing I've noticed, by the way, about the save files, is that you don't get your timers inside there, so it does make it a little confusing for me when I go through again. Now, one of the things I'm going to want to do is to pick up pyroglyphics. For that, I would need metal and Faust to be able to restore my, or to actually do the level ups. We are at 3, so eventually we'll be taking this up to 5, which actually puts that among one of my more powerful memories. I'm going to wait until we have the Sickle and Eclipse to deal with. Okay. So, I suppose the next question is, how am I going to... Now, I've got to be talking with Mrs. Kill. Yeah, so we're going to use her to get some memories. And I suppose it depends on the weather in terms of what the next move is, assuming that we haven't already... assuming we haven't already gotten the day's weather. Oh, you know what? I wonder if I was resting on a memory. Yep. So, unfortunately, I wasted my confounding parable because I was resting and getting the stolen secret. No biggie. All right, so the day's goals. It's always nice to sort of figure out what the day's goals are. There's a very nice compliment that somebody gave to one of the earlier videos, which was talking about how it was a nice demonstration of time management. And one of the drawbacks is we're getting close to, well, not close. We've got a number, but we are starting to approach the 100 episode mark. And I'm happy about that because this is a much bigger game than Cultist Simulator. There's a lot to do, and I like talking about the game. But it can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge trying not to sound too repetitive on things. On the other hand, people do like to watch these videos to gain an understanding about how the game works. So it's nice to... One of the ways that I figure that I can do a compromise in terms of these things is to say, all right, well, I'm going to read... or I'm going to work out sort of the plan for the day, and I don't have to be too twitchy in terms of restoring or, you know, getting worth out of every single element of the soul. There's lots of things that I can still do, obviously, but one of the things is just to get sort of some major signposts for the day. And I don't have my tablet that I normally jot down those little notes on, but I should be able to keep this in mind. So we'll want to see what's going on in the tower, because we may have another room that we can open. We'll obviously want to explore what's inside here. Before the end of the season, I would like to level up the pyroglyphics and, of course, whatever we get outside of reading the secret colors. And then we did get the special book here, the 3 and the 3. Now, this is a very powerful moon book, so we're going to have to wait a while before we can really get before we can read that. But it's still nice to know, okay, this is an option that I have available to me in a target over time. So, you know, perhaps if I get the Wormwood Dream again and I feel strong enough to be able to handle a more intense moon mystery, I may consider that. The other thing is I am currently using a cat wink, so being able to restore the cat wink would be a good option. And then it looks like with a second glory, I think we were waiting for Snowfall for that one, but I have a few other options. So I think right now my primary focus is going to be on finishing the books that I have, leveling up pyroglyphics. That is actually a very straightforward one for me to do. Actually, I should put aside the Shopt and the Whist as well, because those are technically Forge and Lantern ones. If I want to get something out of the day, and I think it wouldn't hurt to get a little more blue crown. Let me just take a quick look and see what our reserves are for this. We've got one. Oh, we've got a few. Let's see where we're at the halfway point of the day, I think. So one of the things I'm a little worried about would be not making use of my Fet Health or Core, either to do some gardening or to, you know, just check out the beach. But on the other hand, I don't want to lose the opportunity to just, you know, do other things. I don't want to wind up not leveling up pyroglyphics, for instance. It looks like I've more or less got the day sort of sorted out, so... Oh, beautiful, it's snow. Okay, so that makes it a little more complicated for me just in terms of getting the whole day done, but this is still a nice this is still overall a good thing in my opinion. So, a second glory. The priest Juseit celebrates the extirpation of the gods who were stoned, those hours who preceded humanity. This is also just an interesting text. So if we were to add the snow memory, and then we would have to add Deep Mandaic, then we would add the Whist, and then our best winter, I think, is Quenchings and Quellings. Okay, so this leaves me one short. That doesn't quite make sense, because I remember thinking pretty clearly that it was an exciting thing to have winter weather. Okay, well, I suppose the next step would be to get something that gets me winter. Now, the usual story is whenever I have winter... you know what? So I know my usual routine is to wait for the weather... I usually wait for let the memory cycle through, but I feel like there are maybe other ways that I can then again, I'm trying to think what kind of winter ink. I don't have a winter tool, and I don't have a winter ink to show for my efforts either. I know of a winter ink, but it's definitely not one that I can build right now. Shucks. Okay, so I don't feel great about this, to be... Wait. Parabate. Okay. Hey, I'll take it. To bind, which binds to the one whose name... Sorry. Parabate, which binds to the one whose name is there written, a minor ink of power. So you'll notice, I think the last couple of episodes have been the first time I've really been using things like inks to read certain books. I definitely don't mean that to suggest that you shouldn't do that. The only thing is that you'll probably notice I have this tendency to avoid using consumables until absolutely necessary. And it usually just comes back to the idea that it takes effort to make a consumable, and so if I have them lying around, like I did at this moment, right? So I could have used this parabate to get a heart text read, a lantern text, a scale text, and I'm using it now to get a winter text read. And I very often said, okay, you know, and there isn't a knock tool, and there isn't a what's the other one? Winter tool, but I've always had the option of using these inks to sort of push me over the edge. And it's precisely for these situations that I normally leave things lying around for this. Now, there's always the option to sort of rebuild things. This isn't a major one, but you'll notice that we're sort of starting to transition into a couple of new phases of this playthrough. I am suddenly finding it a bit harder to go into certain rooms with the specific set of elements of the soul and skills that I have. I'm finding it a little bit harder to read certain books. And so once we really get to that point where we've gone as far as we can with our existing tools, that's where I start digging into my reserves a little bit more, and it just means that I can go that much further. And more importantly, it helps me learn some new things, so if I have a problem that I haven't run into before, I learn some better ways of achieving some of the things that I used to struggle to do. Because there's lots of different ways of playing this game, and so there's lots of it's hard to say that you've seen all of the approaches in any one go. But in this case here, I will admit I was a little surprised about this, but we found an easy solution. Okay. Let's see. I'm definitely going to want to keep the... reading set aside. Mrs. Kill stands ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. As somber as autumn, as kind as autumn, she also likes her beer. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. Alright, that's the Squawkphologia open. And here's our stolen secret. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. When Baron Valentine's melancholia and his acusis became too much to bear, he began to take his meals here, with none of those sounds that he found troubling. Only the wind, the sea, and the cries of his beloved birds. After the DeWolfs were gone, the librarians of the Curia would come here when they needed to think in peace. So in this room we've got the comfortable garden chair, We have a desk. Now this is a bit of a different desk from what we normally run into. So it's got as with most of these things, we've got room for a soul, a skill, and a memory. This takes Moon and Rose. But in this case, we can add an element to the soul, an animal, or blank paper. Well, blank anything. And then this will take a memory or a pigment. Now, I don't know, I sometimes wonder if these rooms were designed to do something different than what the final version of the game has finally supported. But in any case, it's a bit different from the desks in the sense that you can't read a text at them. We have Asmiel, so a silver ink that can only be made and used in dreams, an ink of revelation. Shadowless silk, Armagnac D's, and a snug chair. Wicker chair with a soft white lap blanket for chilly evenings, 2 heart, 2 scale. The next room, the Weeping Chamber, is Forge, Heart, or Sky, so our best bet here most likely would be, well, there's 2, so there's always the Sky, because if we need, we can always make a Storm, so that's 4 Sky to work with. Although by that reasoning, the heart is also available to us, and at least we know that Mrs. Kill has some heart aspect. The question is how we boost the rest of it. So where Sky doesn't have an immediate recommendation in terms of drinks, there are a couple of drinks which will grant us some heart. Finally, there's Forge. Denzel is not an inexpensive option for us, so in the case of Heart and Sky, we have Mr. and Mrs. Kill, both of them. Well, between the 2 of them, you have Heart and Sky. But Denzel will expect payment for his services, so we would want to make sure that we have sort of everything linked up. Our best bet, I think, in this case is probably Heart, because we have Mrs. Kill's 1. Let's say we go for the Storm. That seems to be the most powerful memory that we have available to us. So that brings us up to 5. We would then have a tool that would bring us up to 6. Then I would have the core, so that brings us up to 8. So at that point, it's really just 2 more heart that we need to deal with. And I believe I'd probably be a little cranky having to use it, but the Ruby-Wise Ruin should give us another 2. In fact, we could do that today. Maybe that'll be something that we do at the end of the day, now that I think of it. And we'll just double check that we don't have any more heart rooms. I suspect we don't, because I'm sure I would have noticed this before. Yeah, so we have a 12 heart room. But yeah, the 10 heart room is pretty straightforward, so we'll probably take care of that, but we'll wait to see how the rest of the day goes before I commit myself too far. Speaking of Heart and Sky, there tis and be no tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. Now this doesn't help me with pyroglyphics, but again, we may have other uses for the memories before the day is done. Once we hit midday, I might have to make some choices in terms of where. Wow. All right, well, I'm happy that I have the Triss to throw at it, but I've seen that happen once before. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal in a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. It is winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire and the sweet bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. So again, we'll throw some Tryst at it and call it a day there. But yeah, I feel a little foolish about the confounding parable. The other line, one of Samuel Savage's more thoughtful works, an allegorical play about the city Clarity, a city that is also a book, and the sentences which inhabit it. The Lord's proverbial and the Lord's disquisitional war in the streets of Clarity, while the punctuates get drunk on ink and supply the jokes, though by Savage's usual standards there aren't very many jokes. The final act sees the Lord's Proverbial unsealing the City Clarity's gate to expel the population into the unknown. The formula that they use for the unsealing is a real one. It can be used with knock and preliminal meter to create a gate sign of power. So again, we're going to wait on the memories that we get from Mrs. Kill before I commit myself to too many actions. Okay, that's got our 14 moon. And this is the reason why we went for the confounding parable, is because of the possibility of getting this intuition, so that at least paid off. Now I can be a little more relaxed about how the day is going. We'll still want to see where Mrs. Kill's memories take us, but... Okay, the secret colors. Black Ellie, disgraced Damascene matriarch of the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot, wrote this while fleeing the agents of the duty. Ellie writes of the secret colors of the sun, the blessed traces of error, weaknesses in sunlight, balancing principles in its reflection. A deeper account of these secret colors, Ellie reveals, was kept at a shrine to the 3 hours of the chancel in the grey rock in the sea, far from the intrigues of the Sisterhood of the Church. It is hidden from the common eye, but can be revealed with the arts of sickle and eclipse. So I'm going to read that again, and again, we've seen this before, so there won't be any big secrets, although it is kind of fun that we had sickle and eclipse. So, the secret colors. Black Ellie, disgraced Damascene matriarch of the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot, wrote this while fleeing the agents of the duty. Ellie writes of the secret colors of the sun, the blessed traces of error, weaknesses in sunlight, balancing principles in its reflection. A deeper account of these secret colors, Ellie reveals, was kept at the shrine to the 3 hours of the chancel at the grey rock in the sea, far from the intrigues of the Sisterhood of the Church. It is hidden from the common eye, but can be revealed with the arts of sickle and eclipse. So, we have something specifically about the sun. So, to me, one of the things that is important is the contents of what we're looking for. And again, this game is perfectly enjoyable as a series of just sort of nice bits of writing and, you know, a couple of puzzles to solve and things like that. But it's nice to have motivations for doing certain things. So we've actually, you know, through accident and through just kind of casual play, we have actually found this before, but now we know what we're actually looking for and why this makes sense. So specifically when it says, the deeper account of these secret colors was kept at a shrine to the 3 hours of the chancel, well, that's this thing here, the chancel of the Abbey Church. The Church of the Unconquered Sun acknowledges only a handful of hours, the sun in rags or splendor, the Menascate, the Madrigad, the Watchman, and, reluctantly, the Wolf Divided. Any other so-called hours must be lesser powers, wicked impostors, or superstitions. So the Church denies 2 of the 3 hours of the chancel, and yet it's the chancel who are said to determine which of their peers qualify as hours. That's theology for you. Abbot Geoffrey decreed that all 3 should be venerated in this holiest of rooms. To avoid actual heresy, he would not permit any of the 3 to be named. That's theology too. So in this case, we now know that if we use sickle and eclipse at this altar, we'll find something secret. We've of course seen a secret of the house because I was really excited to, be able to, to figure out that challenge. It might have taken me a couple more books if this was my very, very first playthrough, but I figured I found that earlier, so or in the stream, so I might as well actually do it in the game, which tipped me off. But this one here, depending on when you read this in the game, you may or may not have the chancel unlocked, but in this case here, it's pointing me towards a secret location for a book. And that is one of the great things about Hush House. So I have played this game at times where I didn't investigate individual items very much. And that's just because I had other things that I wanted to do with my elements of the soul, and you'll notice that lately my style has been to limit the number of elements of the soul that I get. So it's more costly for me to do investigations, but there are things that are, I won't say hidden in plain sight, but definitely, if you were to just try and spam every skill in every single workspace, it wouldn't be very fun. and more importantly, it would seem kind of random in terms of where these items are, but it's very clear at this point that there are secrets inside of this game that are more than just sort of the text. They're more than just sort of implications of what are found inside of certain rooms. The contents of the books will actually point out that there are hidden books that are sort of intended to be secreted away for people who are in a position to understand what's going on. And that's what the Secret Colors is about. So we got a revelation for that. I'll make sure that I put that in place. And hey, we get more Sickle and Eclipse. I'm not going to complain about that, but it might be a bit challenging to level it up today. We'll see where we're at. So first of all, let's deal with the revelation. Getting a bit crowded, but I suppose we can always move the Watchful Tantra if it becomes a problem. Oh, you know, level 4 actually isn't that tough. So, okay, so I was moving Pyroglyphics. So that's eventually going to become a number 5. Funny thing, Sickle and Eclipse is eventually going to become a level 6. So I'm going to move rights in the roots down. All right. So yeah, it's not too troublesome, but it's going to take some effort. I guess the good news is I have the intuition and the confounding parable to get me started. Actually, you know what? We're doing okay for this. So maybe I'll use my Arab in that case. Yeah, I think we can level this. We can at least do one Sickle and Eclipse level up before the end of the day. In fact, I'm confident enough in where I'm at, I might start prepping Mrs. Kill for opening up that other room. So let's take a peek at the Swaddled Thunder. The storm swathed in subtle threads, ready to be released with a few judicious snips. Investigate the object. You won't use this up or consume it by doing this. There it is in Camino Tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. So the revelation will help me with Pyroglyphics, but I don't have much in terms of the Forge or Lantern. I'll talk with her about Core first. Everything goes easier with a song, boosts heart and grail. I think just because I'm coming up short on some of my elements of the soul and I'm keeping Mrs. Kill in training right now, I might hang on to my health for today. The thread parts, the weave is empty, the skies cry out. I might start restoring a few of these as well. So the original plan was to set aside the metal Faust and Shaft for Pyroglyphics. I'd only actually need 2 of them, but it's possible I may not even be able to level up the 1. We only need 3 memories, so using 2 should be sufficient. But I am possibly going to need to use the health. Okay, let's keep making money with our core. We should be able to get at least 2 more of those in. And we have another book. So, a second glory. The priest Jusei celebrates the extirpation of the gods who were stoned, those hours who preceded humanity. Jusei engages in an apologia for the destruction of the hours. They were old, they were cowardly, they were vile, their time had passed, and it was the shining destiny of humankind to seize the house through glorious battle. Jusei recounts how the hour called Seven Coils was slain in battle by the Colonel, how the Grail devoured the hour called Tide, and how the egg unhatching fled like a coward. He's quite vituperative about the egg unhatching. He warns darkly against its return. So we get snow stories for our trouble there. This is also pretty good because of the winter and moon aspect. I suppose if I felt threatened, I could always sort of dump the Sickle and Eclipse plan and level up Snow Stories instead. Do I even have Snow Stories? Yeah, right here. So that's going to be a pretty easy one to level up. But again, unfortunately, I'm competing with the other memories that I have. So, and we got a Hindsight. Well, that'll at least get me started on Snow Stories, but I am going to need either my Whist or my Tryst back. But let's find a home for the text. I used to like keeping Hindsight and Foresight on top of each other, but I don't think that's possible now. Yeah. All right. I think I already tried this before where Stolen Secret, like, I wanted to see if I could move these two shelves, but didn't turn out. So this one's Secret Thresholds. I'm actually just short on shelf space, period. I should probably figure out another room in which I can put books. And I know I'm at the end of the episode, so this is a tough time for me to have to figure this stuff out. I really feel like I should be able to cram this in. All right, well, I'll put a Second Glory. This is its temporary home for now. Consider-wise, yeah, I still need to level a few things up. But overall, this was a really good day for us, and we're exactly at the halfway point. So I think it's fair to say at this point we're not going to bother with any kind of gardening or things like that. There's just simply too much to do. The one challenge is that sort of between now and the end of the season, I am probably going to want to bang out a lot of these different lessons. The good news, though, is that number one, they're not that challenging. And number two, by the time we're done, we're probably going to be able to take a look back at a few of those and at a few of the books that we've got. And, we can say, oh, this is a piece of cake now. I'm not quite at the point yet where I'm angling towards certain paths for upgrades. So, for instance, a really sensible thing for me to do would be to try and push a lot of rows. So you're not limited to leveling up, like, you don't have to put pyroglyphics to pyroglyphics. I could use pyroglyphics to level up Inks of Revelation because they share the lantern in common. Right now, I've just been sticking with the lesson that I get. It's mostly just easier to kind of keep track in my head that way. But there are definitely ways, there's ways and times where it would make sense to try and level up a different skill with your lesson. It just happens to be that I play a particular way, and I don't mean to suggest it is the best or even a good way to play. It's just one that works for me. But yeah, so clear out my lessons. We've got 6 to work with right now. We will also open up at least one more room. And then from there, it's kind of a time to take stock in terms of what different books we can read. And of course, we're not going to ignore the treasure of the house, but it's not going to grow legs and walk away. We definitely have other things that we need to be doing with my Elements of the Soul right now, so I just simply can't dedicate the Sickle and Eclipse to the task right now. But make the long forbidden invocations to the 3 and reveal a treasure of the house. There is actually another way of doing this, by the way, but I am going to keep that under my hat. If you really want to know, feel free to ask inside the comments, but I figured it would be a little fun to leave some mysteries available to people. So maybe you don't have Sickle and Eclipse, maybe you want to figure out what the other option is. I am going to leave that space open for the rest of you. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all had a nice weekend. I will be off on the Tuesday as is normal, and then we'll be back Wednesday to unpack all of the stuff that we just got from today's work. Until then, take care. Oops. I need to remember what my stop recording button is. There it is. Have a good day. Have a good night.